I want any one of you to volunteer, preferably somebody who hasn't spoken yet. If you could volunteer to tell me what you think about any one of these questions that I've raised. And when it comes to your experience, whatever comes to mind regarding what I said, any particular social group, anything in your context that you think these questions are helping you reflect on. Anyone?
Can I?
Sure.
Okay, the third question is very applicable in my country at the moment. To what extent is social exclusion and marginalization a community behavior issues? In my country right now, because we have two colonial masters, French and Britain, so we have two speaking English region and 8 French-speaking region. So the other 2 speaking region of Cameroon had a problem because of marginalization. Because if I go to one office now at the moment, I will have to speak French before I'm being understood. So these persons, some group of persons, they just came up with the idea we are being marginalized and stuff. So we are in a serious crisis right now because of this issue, this question 3.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. Anything else? Yes, we're listening.
I understand the second question. What about structured
Mm-hmm.
inequality? In this question, I understand that everyone divide the status of people. Some are rich, some are poor people. That's why they are unequal in the society. Because we can say that rich student can study in high standard school, and poor parents, the poor children learn in public sector and other way. So that's in this way we understand that in our society we cannot give equal right to all people, because we divide in status.
True, absolutely true. So what you're talking about when in terms of structural inequalities, you're talking about resources and access to resources. Some people, because of certain advantages, get more resources. Now the question to ask is, who are the ones who actually get more access to resources? Is it just the rich or the poor? Or maybe in some cases, in some places, there are certain preferred communities which are getting some preferential treatment and access to resources. That's also something to think about. Now, if we look at, yes, of course. Who's this? Okay, Lillian, sure.
I would answer about the second question about the inequalities. Here in Lebanon, we have two types of people, two types of community: the rich and the poor. That's the inequality here. Not only the public and the private schools, because the economic crisis here in Lebanon.
All right. But then when it comes to who are the rich and who are the poor, there are probably many other aspects that come into play. When we think of inclusion, it's not just about the rich people being included in the decision-making process.
Yes.
It's also about access of other marginalized communities. And when I say marginalized, it means that somebody who is deprived of access to resources, who is consciously and intentionally made poor or deprived of the dignity of life because of the way they identify with a particular community. It can be a religious community, it can be an ethnic community, it can be an ethno-linguistic community. I mean, if you look at, for example, what's happening in Afghanistan, you would know that, for instance, the Hazara community are often targets. The Shia community is targeted. There are many such different communities and community identities which can become a reason for some communities being excluded and some communities being included. So when we talk about social inclusion and we talk about peaceful and inclusive societies, we have to take into account that it's not enough to just have laws that ensure that there's no discrimination, but that there is also inclusive and representative participation in decision making, so that the voices and concerns of different sections of the society are taken into account, right? Now, if you
you
look at,
mean sorry for interrupting.
yes,
Sorry, you mean the
yes,
sorry, you mean the discrimination between women and men here? Because
absolutely,
here
that also counts.
there is no inequality. There is no equality between women and men here in Lebanon at all. Yeah.
It's the same story everywhere in the world, my dear.
Somehow they are improving. Somehow they are improving.
Okay. So now we have a small exercise that I want each of you to do, which is that take a piece of paper and pen, take about 1 minute or so, and draw a flower. It has to be like the petals and the center should be, circular, as circular as it gets, because it will be easier to write inside. At the center of the flower, write the first identity, the strongest identity you have. It can be that of a man or a woman. It can be that of coming from a particular sexual orientation. It can be coming from a particular nationality, a particular religion, a particular linguistic community, a particular ethnic community. It can be anything. Whatever is an important identity to you. It can also be a professional group, like you can be a student, you could be a working professional, you could be a teacher, you could be, you could just relate in whichever way. You can be a student. These are also social groups. So any social groups that you relate to or identify with, and those that are strong. So we are going to be taking one identity, which is your primary identity, something that you feel most strongly about. We put it in the center. And for all the other 5 petals, we'll put in one identity, which are very important in your everyday, daily interaction with the world. Once you're done doing that, I'd like you to take a few seconds to recall if any of those identities that you have and relate to, did you ever feel discriminated against because of that identity? For example, I may be discriminated against. Suppose I go for a job and I'm going to be hired, but they prefer a man over me, not because I'm any less skilled, but because there is this idea that a man would be able to do certain tasks better. That is discrimination, for instance. So I was discriminated against because I was a woman. So if you have had any such experiences, we'll just, in the interest of time, we would just like to take one person to volunteer sharing. But for the others, you could always type in the chat box. The chat box is open. You could always type in the chat box and participate, so that we could take a look at what everybody has to say about one of their identities for which they have been discriminated against. Please note that whatever we share in this room is absolutely confidential, and this is a safe space. So you can feel free to share if you've had any vulnerable moment of feeling discriminated against because of your identity. Because one of our most important understanding of the purpose of SDG 16 and why we need to work on inclusion and diversity is when we feel as stakeholders very strongly about the same, because we've experienced discrimination of some sort. So we can then empathize with others who feel discriminated because of their identity. So let's do this empathy exercise, and please raise your hands. There's a raise hand option, I suppose. There should be. Please raise your hand once you're done doing the 5 petal exercise, and one of you can maybe volunteer to share about an experience of exclusion. Try to mention, how did this memory make you feel? And when you felt that discrimination, what did you wish for? Did you wish that there were laws that protected you? If there are already existing laws that are protecting you, but you still don't feel protected, then what do you think should change? How do you think it should come? Just give me in a few lines what you feel. So let me know who wants to go ahead. All right. I see Didi. I'm sorry, I'm calling you Didi because it's written Didi's iPhone. So,
Yes, that's my name, Jai.
okay.
Okay.
So,
My first circle is a grassroots girl. Yes. And the first one I want to talk about is job exclusion. Because when I was done with my degree the first time, I applied for a job actually. So we were asked to come for interviews. Like I said, in my country, you need to either know how to speak French or English. So I went to the office at that time. I went and met but a Frenchman. I was unable to speak French fluently. So it was very difficult for me to answer some questions on the sheet because it wasn't translated.
okay.
I knew I read very well and prepared very well for that exams, but I could not translate the questions properly because it was in French. I faced a lot of difficulties throughout the exams. And when we came out, just the French students were like, oh, they'll pass and stuff. So if my own thought about this, if they could include English in their system of exams, like when they have exams, they set for both people, they shouldn't exclude these people because these people are not part of these people. If they could set for both people, it would be better.
Thank you. That is very, very valuable. So what we see from here is that you faced a sort of exclusion because of your linguistic capabilities and language. And so your immediate wish was that you wish that they would be more inclusive of including other languages so that it enhances, it improves the access of other people who are gifted in other languages and not probably well versed in this. So you see that the experience of exclusion and identifying with either a language or a religious identity, an ethnic identity, much of it often impacts our interaction with the world, whether or not we like it. So because it does, so it at many different levels, at the individual level, at a collective community level, at the local governance level, at even the topmost policy levels, you would see that the issue of social inclusion, which is very deeply connected with how people identify with social groups, is something that is intrinsic and a core exercise that we need to consciously navigate. But not much of our, you can say, systems and processes, existing systems and processes, have any conscious effort or display any conscious effort to practice inclusion and diversity. So in that case, let us move on to understanding identity more deeply. So because most of us, when we say identity, it seems like just something really vague, right? So when we are looking at identity, the term identity, what does it actually mean? So there's a professor at the Stanford University, James D. Ferren, who talks about identity as being linked in two linked senses. Identity, it refers to a social category, a set of persons who are marked by a label, distinguished by rules deciding membership, and alleged characteristic features or attributes. It can be a racial group, a national group, a religious group, an ethnic group. It can be a linguistic group, it can be a student group. It can be any social group that people identify with because of a certain few set rules that they conform to, some characters or attributes that they may share. They can be even just like-minded people like you have in religious communities. They may have a certain way of practicing their faith or culture. These are the things which bring people together into groups. And that in itself is the core of identity. But then you may also say that, you also have personal identity. You are unique, and that's how you identify. So yes, there is also a personal attribute to it. So in the second sense of identity, which is personal, you have an identity as some distinguishing characteristic or characteristics that a person takes special pride in or views as socially consequential, but more or less unchangeable. So something that defines who you are, something that in the sense that marks you out. For instance, I may have, I may be good in communication. You may be good in painting. You may be a great artist, or you may be someone who has some unique skill or has a unique gift. These are certain unique traits which make up your personal identity. As much as they also relate you to the group, that is maybe the group of an artist, group of being a woman, group of being something else, but you always have something unique as your sense of individual identity as well as your collective identity, which is the social group that you belong to. Now, why do we need social groups? Because we're social beings, because we need a sense of order in order to operate within the world. We need to work our way towards making sure we're managing and accessing resources. And as social groups, we are able to, you can say, rally for something or mobilize and, lobby for our own right to access more resources in a more potent manner in a group than probably individually. And if you are able to do that individually, you can do that if you have a certain level of privilege. For instance, if I need access to an office, right, and I have a group of people who are coming together to demand something particular to be done, the office will sit and take notice. If I go alone, probably they won't take much heed. They won't take it seriously. Or if I am someone important, maybe say I'm a bureaucrat and I go there because I want something done, maybe they'll treat me differently because I have a certain level of power and authority, certain level of privilege. And being a bureaucrat in itself also sets me apart in terms of my personal identity. So our personal and our collective identity, our social identity are always working together. So identity, if we are to look at it as a term in all its whole, it is something that gives us a sense of being who we are for ourselves and who we are in community. Okay. So now we look at our discussion prompts. So if Neelam, you're there, I would request you to consider breaking up this group into two groups, two breakout rooms. These are the questions. You may want to take a snapshot of it. The prompts, they're saying, considering identity as a social category, try and share one example of how social inclusion has enabled more representative decision-making and non-discriminatory policies. And the other one is, do you know about policies that have been designed to support social inclusion and transform social behavior of communities? These are two prompts based on the little bit that we discussed today. The two groups will have around, say, 5 minutes at the most to take any one of these prompts and bring up one example, discuss amongst yourselves, bring one example, and try to tell me how you reflected on one of these points. We will come back to the main room in about 5 minutes, and then one person from each group will volunteer to share what was discussed in the group and the example. We will take, that would take around 2 minutes. Okay. Not more than 2 minutes. Try to keep it to 1.5 minutes. So overall, we have like 6 minutes of this exercise. And please remember the names of each of your group members, because after we are done with the session today, I'll be requesting Neelam to put you guys into these two groups that we discussed in today. And these two groups are going to be doing a small task for me based on what we discussed today, so that we have more reflections after the session. It's going to be fun, and I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy working together. So Neelam, Mahin, if you guys can put these people into two breakout rooms. That'd be great. Is that possible?
Yes, we can do that. We can do that.
Yeah, for 5 minutes, 2 breakout rooms. Guys, join in one of the rooms that you're in and take any one of the prompts. So Mahin also, if Neelam or you can perhaps copy the, the prompts and put them in the chat boxes when they get into the group so that they can pick whichever one they want to think about. And then we come back to the room after 5 minutes and discuss this. Thanks, Mahin. I'll see you guys soon in 5 minutes then. Please guys participate, because the more you participate, the more you learn from each other. We have a beautiful and diverse group of people from different cultures and countries. This is one great opportunity to really learn a lot. So make the most of it. These group activities are going to be huge learning experiences, trust me. And when you're going to be doing a project together, your small tasks together after each mentorship session, you will actually enjoy bringing in a lot of your own new ideas and creative inputs together. So I hope you all are active and awake still. I'll just wait for the breakout rooms to work out.
Hello, sorry, dear. I didn't understand what I have to do because the interconnection is interrupted here.
Hi. Well, there are these 2 prompts in one of your groups. I guess you're broken up into 2 groups, right? You join one of the breakout rooms and you pick any one of these prompts and you find a case or an example which you can reflect on based on these prompts, based on your
You have to
understanding.
no, you have to do the group or not, because I didn't join any breakout room.
Okay, I just have
Well,
to see
Vivian,
where.
please join WhatsApp. We're already discussing over there.
Okay.
Lillian, are you there? Hello.
Yes, I'm here. Yes,
Ah.
hi, I'm here.
So let's discuss question 1.
Okay, are the others back in this room? Because I just see a few of them, and I don't know if the rest are in a breakout room. So, were you put in a group? Because we're supposed to be in 2 groups and discuss this. So I don't know. I guess I see Lillian and Prince and you in this. Is this the group where we are supposed to be discussing? Mahin, if you're here, can you shed some light on what's happening?
For now, Rigo and Liliana are discussing question number 1, and question number 2, Didi and Prince.
Mahin,
I lost the
where
internet.
are the others?
I am having a look on them.
Okay, did they just drop out? I thought they were in some group.
They were there in the WhatsApp, I think. Let me catch them. Till now, they can discuss. We have 2 groups already.
Yeah, so like they have to come back here because we're going to hear from all of them, like at least the 2 groups, one person from each group.
Yes.
We'll be sharing about any one of the identities, the prompts. Okay, so I think we should, in the interest of time, we should start discussing one of the prompts. So, Rigo, I suppose you wanted to discuss the first prompt, is it?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to share some of my opinion, regarding the first prompt. So,
Sure.
yeah, can we, the identity and I would like to share some of the examples of how social inclusion has enabled more representative decision making. I think one of the example, because my country is located in Southeast Asia, and I see countries like Singapore, I think they really promote social inclusion. And because in Singapore they have policies where they protect, because in Singapore they have different races, different religions, and so on. Because they have Chinese, they have the Malay people, they have the Indian people. So they live in a very multicultural and multiracial society. So the government, they decided to formulate policies that can promote social inclusion. And they have policies, different policies in such as they have public housing quotas, they have social policies, ethnic composition, they have education policies, everything they include the social inclusion. And as a result, we see that people there live very harmoniously. They don't like have ethnic conflicts or religious conflicts, something like that. So they also have representative from different ethnic groups and also different religions as well. So I see that this is one of the example of the social inclusion that we can consider as successful. Yes, that's all.
That's great. That's great. Which country are you from, Rigo?
I'm from Timor-Leste. It's in Southeast Asia.
Okay. Oh yeah, right. Great. Great example. And indeed, Singapore is also very prosperous because of the way it has been able to make the most out of the limited resources it has. And people are much better off. I mean, even in terms of poverty level and everything. I mean, they have done remarkably well in terms of policies being more inclusive and supportive of different communities and people from different identity backgrounds. Brilliant example, Rigo. Who wants to go next? Prince, Lillian, anyone? Guys? Hello.
Prince and Didi are still discussing. I think Didi will be
Okay.
joining soon this Zoom session, yes.
Okay, please ask her to join soon because we will be closing soon after. And I'll be giving them the task to further work on. So I would need everyone back in the room. I don't know where the others disappeared. If they are in the WhatsApp, please ask them to join again. I mean, they could have been on the Zoom and discussed on WhatsApp still. Back. Hi, Didi. Prince, you guys are back. Any one of you want to reflect on any one of the prompts?
We are group. We have the second question, so Prince will be presenting on behalf of my group.
Brilliant. Great. Go on, Prince.
Okay, thank you so much. According to what we have actually come up with, there are a lot of different policies that have been in support of social inclusion and transformation of social behavior. Yes, and some certain articles which were written by United Nations, UNICEF, yes, which talked about social inclusion, and actually UNICEF talked about they're actually working on creating an enabling environment for equity and children's right in South Asia. So I believe this is one of the actually important policies which will actually enable everyone to be actually involved, so that every child can know their rights and be able to actually practice equity amongst the children. I think that is one of the important policies that they have actually come up with. That is UNICEF.
All right. Anything specific you want to mention about any specific policy which addresses any specific need or any specific gap? I mean, when you say that UNICEF works for children in general, trying to give them a good life, but when we talk about children, say, who are, who need to be included, do they come from any particular community? Like, are they working towards, do you know about any particular law or policy that they've designed for any particular group of children? Or maybe children from conflict areas, or maybe children who are struggling with disabilities, or who have children who identified a particular social group that's marginalized or deprived. So what is the policy doing to change social behavior, or make sure that people are kinder to them, or people are working on changing the way they look at an issue, right? So over here, I want you to think about the role of advocacy and of policies that are used in order to encourage advocacy of certain different kinds of things, furthering a particular kind of thought process, which will in turn change social behavior. So because we as communities, we are always operating in a context. That context is not devoid of history. It's not, we cannot cut off our ties with what has gone before, but we often derive from there, and most of us, and the way we look at the world, who we see as our own and who we see as the other, comes from us, our sense of an understanding of the world according to where we are growing up, right? Who we are interacting with. So if we have to change that behavior and be more inclusive in the way we treat other people, what kind of policies actually help there? There are policies which talk about including people. That's legal and on paper. But then there are also policies that could perhaps be designed in a way so that they nudge you. They nudge people to, do something differently, treat someone differently. Maybe there is a way of incentivizing that. I won't say that you should have the answer right now, but think about it. Is there a way you can design a policy that you get someone to do something or consider doing something, considering changing the way they behave or treat other people? And is there a way to incentivize such an approach? That in itself is also a different kind of policy that will ensure that there is more of an not just enforcement of non-discriminatory policies, but that there is a definite shift in the way the society and culture operates. That's the question to ask. To what extent can laws, only laws and policies, otherwise work? If we are just telling people that this is what you have to do, how many people actually follow that? If you ask a child to do something, the child will go do the opposite, or will have the tendency of doing something else. So most people have the same way of doing things. On paper, it may look like they are catering to the rules or the laws, but is it changing their behavior? Is it changing the way they're treating people from other communities? Does it mean that they are not mistreating, not stereotyping, not othering people from other communities? Think about it. Okay. So now as we come to a close, like this is just an opening session, guys. This is not even the tip of the iceberg. Okay. Today, what I'm leaving you to think is how social inclusion and how communities work with each other within a culture is something that to some extent is regulated by laws and policies, but then what can be done to ensure that there is better implementation of laws and policies, there is accountability mechanisms, alongside the fact that there is also a change in social behavior towards something that that one day perhaps makes these laws irrelevant. I'll give you an example. There was a point of time when women were not allowed to vote, right? These days, in most places, women are allowed to vote. So women being allowed to vote was at one point a matter of inclusive policy. But by now, we see that we've come so far that it's no longer, we take women voting as something for granted. That it's not something that is conscious inclusion, because to some extent, societal behavior has changed in terms of looking at women as voters, right? So that is what I'm talking about when I talk about social behavior change. It has taken a long time, and there are many such facets to work on when we are looking at ensuring representative decision-making and implementation of non-discriminatory policies, laws and policies. But we need to look at it in terms of identities. We need to look at it in terms of community behavior and community identities, how they shape behavior. Because such insights will inform laws and policies. Like tomorrow, if any of you become lawmakers or policymakers, it will help you to have these insights to design policies that are not only inclusive, but also to design policies which incentivize inclusivity, incentivize promotion of diversity. How you do it is the question. So here's a food for thought, and this is the task that I want to give all of you. Now, I would ask Mahin and Neelam to divide you guys into 2 groups, okay? So if you're 8 people, and there'll be 4 in one group, 4 in one group, you guys will report back to me with which group you're on. And I would expect you guys to put your heads together and pick up one cause, okay? One cause that you want to change, something that you want to change, preferably take up a particular context, that is take up a particular region, pick one such area or country or any specific case, and then consider designing a creative advocacy document. I will not tell you what this advocacy document is going to look like. That's entirely up to you. Be as creative as you can be. There are no rules, okay? I want to see what's coming from your head as you look at the world around you and start looking very consciously at how identities shape our behavior. So whatever comes to you, try to put your heads together, do your research, take up one case study each group, and work on designing a creative advocacy document which would suggest how target 16.7 and 16b, which is ensuring representative and inclusive decision making and enforcement of non-discriminatory laws and policies, how these targets can support any one chosen cause. Now you have to advocate for these 2 targets, but do it while promoting social inclusion. When I say social inclusion, keep in mind that you have to address an issue which deals with any kind of identity and marginalization or discrimination based on identity. And when you're looking at identity, obviously culture comes into the context. So identity, culture, look at designing a creative advocacy document that will support 16.7 and 16b for a particular case in point, while highlighting how will you change societal behavior or how will you work towards social inclusion, while also advocating for policies and also having an approach that will help people. That's why I said advocacy, which will also help people to consider changing their behavior or will incentivize building on the inclusion aspect. That is your homework. I will be expecting this document from you in about 10 days time. So I don't want to pressurize anyone during the Christmas New Year break, but so you can take like a week into January, but I would really want to know how you would design this document. Be creative, like I said, no template, no format, no nothing. Be as creative as you want to be. Okay, you can design it as a newspaper ad, you can design it as anything, right? But make sure you have these points in mind. You can take a screenshot of this particular slide to guide you. Know who your team members are, and I would like you guys to inform me who is in your team. It's up to you guys to coordinate with your team and look at the participation. I would also want one of you to present, that would be okay. And yeah, I wouldn't say I'll be grading you on this, but it's going to be like we're going to have a fun feedback session when you guys present. Okay, so I personally don't really like the grading exercise, so I don't like grading, but I like creativity, so be as creative as you can be. And I'll be looking forward to seeing what you have come up with. So do I have your word, guys? One document, pick up any topic that you agree upon. That's the team building exercise. Okay, and let me know who all are in your team and get back to me with the document which you're going to be presenting in the next session, which we'll notify you when it is. That will be all from me. Over to you, Mahin.